Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
You know, folks, I realize I'm America's anchorman and America's truth detector, but I got to tell you, I'm starting to feel like I work for Peephole magazine. Not People, Peephole. Peephole, Tattler, whatever. What a bunch of absolute perverts. By their own definition, these guys are. And the vast majority of them happen to be liberal Democrats. You know, folks, by the way, greetings and welcome. It's great to have you here. Thanksgiving week of the EIB network. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Let's take a look at this. Charlie Rose, 8 women. Have you read that? That Washington Post story is about 5,300 words. It's got graphic detail. It's recent. The guy's 75 years old. The only thing he didn't explain is where he stashes the Viagra. 75 years old, which I guess not that big a deal. 5,300 words. The detail in this story. 8 women. I mean, Roy Moore is not even in the same league, folks, as these guys. Weinstein, Charlie Rose, Bill Clinton, Louis C.K., John Conyers, Kevin Spacey, Dustin Hoffman, Jeffrey Tambor. Have you seen? Oh, man, that is just... Here's this guy, Jeffrey Tambor. He's a favorite of the Hollywood left. He's an actor. He's a bald-headed guy, and he's been playing a transgender woman on some Amazon show called, Transient, Transistor, Trans something or other. And, of course, he's been found guilty of sexual harassment, so I'm sorry. This has been the most rewarding role of my career. And I mean, you talk about transparent. This has been the most rewarding role of your career, to play a woman? These people are shameless, and they'll do anything to extricate themselves out of these jams. But here's the thing about this, folks. And let's go through the names here again. Charlie Rose, Al Franken, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Clinton, Louis C.K., John Conyers, Kevin Spacey, Dustin Hoffman, Jeffrey Tambor. Not a conservative among them. Okay, we'll put Roy Moore on the list, but I'm telling you, Roy Moore can't compete with these people. Roy Moore has got no business being on the same page or in the same league with these people, particularly Clinton, Louis C.K., Spacey, Weinstein, and Charlie Rose. And Al Franken, with one more name, is going to be tied with Roy Moore. Now, you take a look at these guys, their public statements, and this is pretty much universally true of a lot of left-wingers. Their public statements do not match their private behaviors. They are hypocrites of the first order. These are the same kind of people who attend anti-gun rallies with their heavily armed bodyguards. These are the people who are blasting man-made global warming while owning many homes, multiple mansions, and flying around on private jets. These are the same people who support open borders but then build gates and walls around their own homes to keep the undesirables out. You know, pointing out the endless hypocrisies of the left is tiresome. But I'll tell you what, it's these hypocrisies that contributed to Hillary Clinton's defeat. Because people have begun to see through this utter and totally contrived phoniness. It's just, it's nothing new. These guys and these people have been getting away with this phony behavior, saying one thing in public for public consumption, but never living a shred of it in their own lives. And now these are the people that publicly proclaim their love and respect for women and their support for women's and feminist causes and issues, and yet look at how they treat women. And these are the people who run around and accuse everybody else, like us, of engaging in a war on women. And you won't find any of us on this list. And believe me, if there were people to be on this list, they would be there by now. The drive-bys would have ferreted them out. You know, it's another interesting thing, too. All of these sexual harassment allegations coming out of Congress, it raises a very important, that's not an important question, but it's an interesting question. How come it took Harvey Weinstein and Hollywood to break the dam? Why did it take what's going on in Hollywood in this area to break the dam? Why didn't the dam break with Anthony Weiner, with Carlos Danger? Multiple times, this guy is engaging in absolutely reprobate behavior. And the Democrats and the media circle the wagons to make sure that nobody else gets linked to it. And they do what they do to Carlos Danger, make him fall on a number of swords, his own, and try to limit it to that. And I think the reason is that the drive-by media are more protective of the Democrats, especially the Clintons, than they are of Hollywood people. Even Hollywood people that are major donors, even Hollywood people that are major bundlers and fundraisers. At all costs, it was protected Democrats. Now you got John Conyers out there, and he's denying the fact that any settlement was paid to anybody to keep them quiet. But it is every day. It's a new name. And there's a couple names here I haven't mentioned that I've put here in the stack as well, which we'll get to. But the Charlie Rose incident just is the latest, and it is the most detailed. And I'll tell you, Charlie Rose is quintessential establishment. He is quintessentially protected. He is almost the definition of what a real man is in liberalism, faux intellectual. As many of these people are, they pass themselves off as highly educated, very deep intellectuals, and they're nothing more than surface scammers. They're elites by their own definition, by their own proclamation. They live in their beautiful bubbles here, segregated from the reality of life for everybody else. Full of beautiful people who think they are wonderful. They give each other tons of awards, especially when they get in trouble. When they get in trouble, they create new awards to start handing out to each other. It's a combination circle the wagons and self-protection. They have beautiful, multiple homes that get featured in things like Architectural Digest. The fan magazines, the gossip rags are constantly fawning all over them. They never get bad press. They never get investigative press. They never get judgmental press. The gossip media, the straight news and drive-by media idolize these people and want to consider themselves in the same circle of elitehood. But they are not normal. And this is why Donald Trump, another one of the many reasons Trump was elected and remains on track to be reelected. These are not normal people, and they know they're not normal, and they revel in being not normal. They're not normal in the sense that they're better. They're smarter. They're prettier. They're richer. And they all hang together. They all hire each other, and they protect each other, which is fine. Don't misunderstand. But all of this is going on while they attempt to portray the way they think and the way they live and their own behavior as normal, as reflective of the hip culture of America. And it isn't, and they are not. It's just an amazing thing to watch. What broke the dam? What caused this now? Was it in fact Weinstein? Why? Because these stories have been going on for a long time. These behaviors have been going on a long time. The witnesses, the testimony, the details provided about Charlie Rose in the Washington Post today have been known by even his executive producer, some woman whose last name is Vega. A number of women went to her and complained. She said, that's just Charlie. That's just Joe. That's just Joe Biden. That's just who Joe is. That's just who X is. You just got to, that's just who Al is. Isn't it kind of funny? He's a funny guy, right? It's just who he is. Meanwhile, while all of this has been going on for all of these years, look at the energy and the time and the effort put into destroying Donald Trump and Roy Moore and Mitt Romney, and pick any other Republican you want to throw into the list. And yet, based on the left and the media's definitions of proper behavior, upscale behavior, whatever, these are the primary violators of their own code. They are ignored. They are given a pass. Today on the CBS early morning show, whatever they call it, Today Show competitor, you had Gayle King on there. We got audio coming. I mean, Gayle King on there and Nora O'Donnell, and they're crying and they're wringing their hands. It's so terrible. Oh, my God. And they're apologizing to everybody. You telling me they didn't know? They claim they didn't know. How can that be? They're journalists. They're supposed to be curious. How can they not know? If they didn't, fine. If they did know and decided, we can't do anything with this. Charlie's our guy. He's on our show here. He's one of us. Got to protect us and so forth. What is it? If they did know, what does it say about the phony tears today? If they knew the tears are phony. Well, they may not be. Maybe if tears are because everything got caught. Well, I was going to get, there's a lot we don't know about Charlie Rose. We've got that bite coming up. We got Charlie Rose and Brokaw talking about Obama. Oh, it's funny. I tell you what else I asked the guys to do. Cookie is on Thanksgiving break and vacation today, along with Coco. So I called the guys up there. I said, late notice here, but scour our archives and see if you can find any sound of Charlie Rose criticizing Roy Moore. Or being judgmental about Roy Moore. So they put together a montage of things, and it's really not what I was looking for. There isn't really, I just read the transcript. We'll listen to it together when the time comes. It's coming pretty soon. But it was just pretty more acknowledging the news of the day with Roy Moore. I mean, here's Charlie Rose reporting, knowing full well what he's already done himself, and he's introducing these segments, and he's talking about the latest with Roy Moore. What goes through a guy's mind when you're out there reporting all this bogus BS about Roy Moore, and you're amplifying it, and you're trying to make it look like the end of the world, and you know what you have done? Are you sitting there thinking, someday it's going to blow, the lid's going to blow, and I'm going to get caught? Remember Hillary Clinton called the people who make the country work deplorable? She said they were irredeemable. Hillary Clinton, she holds a special place for people in this country who have contempt for the establishment or for the elites. Here she is, a credentialed elitist, a hypocritical bully. You want to talk about hypocrisy? Here's Hillary Clinton paying the Russians to create phony dossiers to take down a presidential nominee and lecturing us about respecting the election process. Here is Hillary Clinton wringing her hands and worried when Trump at the final debate would not acknowledge that he would accept the final election results. Hillary had a cow. Hillary started going, and the drive-by media picked it up, and they all started saying in unison, Trump is bad for democracy. Trump threatens the sacred sanctity of American elections. And here once again, public statements that are in no way close to private personal behavior. Hillary Clinton paying Russians to create phony opposition research data on a presidential nominee and then qualifying it, classifying it as American intelligence, a total scam, while lecturing us and Trump about respecting the election process. Hillary Clinton, Donna Brazile, these are the people working with the media to rig debates, to rig their own primary process. These are the people weaponizing the IRS and the intelligence communities and the deep state. And they preach to us about respecting the American electoral process. Hillary Clinton and her husband, and who knows who else, people getting rich, selling off natural resources to Russians. Uranium One. Meanwhile, in the Trump-Russia collusion story, you don't find any Russians. Where you find the Russians is with the Clintons. Where you find the Russians is with the Democrats. These are people with servers and email programs off the grid that hold national security secrets, and she traffics in them like it's nothing unusual. These are people sexually abusing and smearing innocent women and then accusing those who dare to oppose them politically of engaging in a war on women. And these are the people who fund and protect Planned Parenthood, who butcher and sell off the organs of the unborn for a profit. And they are the elites. They are a cut above. They are the special people. They preach to us about the danger we pose, the threat we constitute. And to cover these people anymore, you do. You have to feel like you're working at Peephole magazine in addition to everything else. Yes, we're back here. I erred, ladies and gentlemen. I left off two important names in the list of prominent sexual abusers, Glenn Thrush and Mark Halperin. I mean, the list is getting so long you can't recite it from memory. What are you laughing at in there? It does. The list keeps growing. It's to the point now you can't memorize the list. The list's gotten so big and so long, and every day I've got a couple other names to add to it. But Glenn Thrush and Halperin, let's not forget, and I've given the audio soundbite crew a new task since I didn't really get what I hoped to find. This is not a criticism of them. I was looking for the gold. Charlie Rose ripping into Charlie Moore so far, or Judge Moore, so far I haven't found it. But I've got a new request that I just sent up the pipeline. Now, who knows when they'll act on it? They probably have a lot of other priorities like lunch and who knows whatever else. I'm just hired help here. But we'll try to get this as quickly as we can. What I told her to go back to the archives around the time the Washington Post released the details of Trump and the Access Hollywood video. And I want you to find Halperin, and I want you to find Rose and any of these other guys who were just jumping all over Trump and saying, that's it. Trump needs to resign the campaign. Trump's a reprobate. Trump's unfit. You need to go out, because that's where we're going to find the comments. Because that's where a golden amount of hypocrisy is going to be. You remember when Trump came out, he was walking out of the trailer with Billy Bush. And then they're doing locker room guy talk, according to Melania. And Trump's talking about what celebrities can get away with because of the magnetism they possessed and the power. And there's yucks. And the drive-by media went berserk over this. This is where Trump talked about, what you can grab, like the stuff Franken does. And I guarantee you we're going to find some comments from some of these guys around that era. Now, it may take the soundbite crew a while to go through the archives and dig up what I'm looking for, but that's the new assignment that I gave them. But I don't remember it specifically, but what are the odds that guys like Thrush at the New York Times or Politico, maybe back then, and Halperin were just all over Trump over that comment, demanding that he resign, demanding unfit for office and so forth. So we'll see what we get. Hang on. Much more, as you know. Your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Pat Buchanan has a good column out now, running at worldnetdaily.com, and it's about how unserious a nation we have become. And it's his take on the differences in America, say, in the 50s and 60s, even some during the 70s up till now. And the things that were on the top of people's minds then as opposed to today. And today, the thing that's at the top of people's minds, prurient, tabloid-type gossip things versus long ago, talk about a majority of the people in the country. A majority of people in the country were much more serious, much more involved, much more aware of America's place in the world. And he may have a point, but I wanted to acknowledge this because I think probably a lot of you in this audience have mixed emotions about all this. I mean, you don't mind hearing the news about the hypocrisy finally coming home to roost for these people on the left. But at the same time, you know this is not the kind of stuff that determines in a direct fashion the status of our country, that there are really some serious things in the world going on right now. And the people we're talking about do not have the fitness to deal with it. And interestingly, I think Donald Trump does. The left is on this big thing. Have you seen the story, Mr. Snerdley? H.R. McMaster, supposedly at a dinner party this past summer. It's BuzzFeed and some other places, 4 or 5 different sources, that McMaster was openly telling people what an idiot Trump is. That he has a kindergarten-type IQ, that he's childlike and doesn't have the intellectual depth to keep up or to understand things. And there's a lot of sources. There are a lot of people here. This is not 1 or 2 people anonymously saying this. There are a lot of people. So a lot of people are giving this some weight. And they're believing that McMaster said it and then asking why. Why would McMaster do this? I have no idea. I have to tell you, I never heard of H.R. McMaster until Trump hired him. I'll take you back to when that was. It was before Trump was even inaugurated. It was over the Christmas break last year, and Trump was down here, spending week after week after week at Mar-a-Lago. And the Michael Flynn thing had blown up, and Trump had asked for his resignation or fired him, and Flynn split. And so there wasn't a national security advisor, a national security director. And when Trump hired H.R. McMaster, a.k.a. Mr. Clean, and I say that because of his bald head, I remember the swamp going nuts with praise. And I think I even mentioned this on air at the time. They hated Trump then like they hate Trump now, like they hated Trump in 2015, like they're going to hate Trump next year. But when he named H.R. McMaster, the Washington establishment applauded and started patting each other on the back and said, this is a serious hire. This comforts us, they said. This gives us a pause. Maybe things won't be so bad because we've got somebody responsible and accomplished from the American military wing who's been named the national security guy. That was H.R. McMaster. Now, I had not heard of him, and that's probably my bad, not having heard of him. But everybody else in the establishment knew who he was. But it wasn't long after that that the infighting at the National Security Council began. You remember Bannon had a seat there, and that drove the establishment crazy. And there were other people that were pure Trumpists, relatively young millennial types who were also staffers. And McMaster immediately started making moves to oust them. And at first he wasn't able to get rid of the young Trumpists and Bannon, but eventually he prevailed. And he got rid of a bunch of... One of the people he got rid of is a young man by the name of Ezra Cohen Waltnick. It's a hyphenated last name, Cohen Waltnick. Now, here, follow this. One of the sources for the story that McMaster told a dinner party that Trump is a buffoon and a kindergartner and an idiot, happened to be the CEO of Oracle. Oracle is a huge software firm out in Silicon Valley. Larry Ellison is the founder. And he was a close friend of Steve Jobs, and he's a Republican donor, strangely enough. But he's not CEO. CEO, I forget the name. Well, Ezra Cohen Waltnick was the National Security Council staffer, supposedly, that directed Devin Nunes of the House Intelligence Committee, the Republican chairman, to specific intel being held by the National Security Council over at the old Executive Office building that contained exculpatory information and intelligence on Trump and Russia and collusion. And Devin Nunes went up and looked at it and then reported on what he had seen, and all hell broke loose. The media and the Democrats and pencil neck Adam Schiff started saying, well, you can't do that. You can't go up there and look at that stuff without us, and you can't report on it without us knowing about it, which Nunes, of course, could do. This led to Nunes having to recuse himself from a certain area of the investigation. But it also led to McMaster getting rid of Ezra Cohen Waltnick, who was one of the young Trumpists, very supportive of Trump and the National Security Council staff. Guess where Ezra Cohen Waltnick now works? At Oracle. Landed on his feet, working at Oracle. Now, do not misunderstand. I am not suggesting that Mr. Cohen Waltnick is a source for this McMaster story. Quite the contrary. Ezra Cohen Waltnick is one of the Trumpists that was muscled out of the National Security Council staff, along with Bannon, by McMaster. Now, the reason I bring all this up is because I have people ask me frequently, what's Trump doing with these kinds of people on his team? Why would Trump hire swamp people? Why would Trump hire people from the Washington establishment who don't like him or who may have less than a favorable opinion about him? I can't answer that. I can only guess, come up with educated guesses like you could. Trump trying to build a bridge to the establishment. Trump trying to forge a little bit of unity. You know how these things go. People on our side genuinely believe that they can build a bridge to people that hate them and come up with some, even if it's thin and very shallow, common ground. And it never seems to work out. Now, McMaster is not isolated. McMaster's mentor and hero is General David Petraeus. And it has long been suspected Petraeus is actually running the national security apparatus with his henchmen in there, H.R. McMaster. This is just the scuttlebutt, folks, that I'm treating you to and bringing you in on. McMaster is, there's no question that McMaster and Petraeus are close. It might also include Mad Dog Mattis, although I'm not sure about that because he's supposedly being ripped by McMaster as well. I haven't seen McMaster react to this, or if he has reacted to it, or denied it, or any of that. I haven't seen that. But it raises the question, why are these kinds of people who actually don't want Trump to succeed in these positions? Well, all you got to do is go back to the meeting at Mar-a-Lago when Trump announces H.R. McMaster and brings him out and introduces him, and the swamp loved it. The swamp went nuts. Now, if you're Donald Trump, you're a human being, and for 2 years they've been wishing you would die. And then you do something and they applaud you. Well, you'd like to get more of that. So, we shall see how that all ends up, but it's a constant battle within the White House and the regime. But the point of all this, I believe that Trump is imminently more qualified to be doing what he's doing than any of these so-called egghead elitist intellectuals. They are the ones that put this country at risk. They are the people of open borders. They are the people that believe in globalism and the abolition of nation states. Trump and what he believes is in some people's minds, the last chance the country has. for reviving traditional American values, which are constantly impugned and laughed at and made fun of by the elites who claim CBS has fired Charlie Rose. That's according to PMS. Well, are you surprised they fired Charlie Rose? By the way, Charlie Rose owned it. He literally did. He owned the Charlie Rose Show on PBS. And you know what's interesting about that? It's about 15 employees. He literally owned the show. He didn't have a human resources director, so none of these women could officially complain to anybody other than to his executive. He's a tightwad. He literally owned the show that airs on PBS. Well, you know, I say that, but with these people, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if Goldman Sachs really owned it, or Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts, you never know, the tangled web that keeps all these establishment types connected. Who the heck really knows? But the word is that Charlie owns it. But I think, folks, that they talk about Trump's kindergartner intellect or mentality or whatever. You take a look at Trump's foreign policy trips and the performance of the U.S. economy. I think it's typical. These eggheads and these elites, they have been the problem. They're the people, everything they do is not in America's best interest, even though they might think that's what they're doing. Same kind of people who just know they're smarter than everybody. They just know it. And when you get down to brass tacks, forget the IQ tests, forget the degrees, forget the so-called education. When it comes to actual common sense and day-to-day knowledge of things, they are so far below their own self-esteem. And this is what leads to their holier-than-thou criticism from on high. Anyway, let me take a brief time out again as time races on here at the EIB Network. We'll be right back after this. Hang tough. Last Friday, I meant to send out some happy birthday wishes to my Uncle Steve Limbaugh, retired federal judge for the Eastern District of Missouri. He turned 90 last Friday. He's my dad's brother, my dad's younger brother. He turned 90, and folks, he's still working every day. He's a prominent attorney now at a major St. Louis law firm, having retired the federal bench. He honestly does not look a day over 60. It's literally incredible. He's 90 years old and does not seem to have aged to me. Now, his father, Rush Limbaugh Sr., my grandfather, lived until age 104 and worked all the way up to age 102. And even when he passed away, he was in full possession of mental faculties. It was simply the body wearing out. But Uncle Steve remains the rock of the family, anchor of the family. We are a family that believes in tradition and the values and institutions that our family grew into at the time everybody in it was born, and those traditions have been maintained through various holidays, well, just through the years. But it is required the effort of the patriarchal adults of the family to maintain this. Because as you know, new generations branch off, and new generations oftentimes reject the values and beliefs of their parents and grandparents, and there's nothing of any animus about it. It's just generational evolution. For example, 2 generations ago could not comprehend the concept of cord cutting and watching television on 4- and 5-inch screens held in your hands. And when that becomes popular, they don't adapt to it. They stick with their TVs, and they still wish they could find Walter Cronkite at 6:30. So it's not that every new generation thumbs its nose and rejects previous generations. It's just that they evolve and go off in their different directions. But our family has always been held together by the ranking adults of the family remaining anchored to the traditions and values that our family has always believed in as important to maintaining not just the country, but the family and the community and all of this. And that's the role Steve has played for, I don't know, the last 20, 25 years, ever since my grandfather died. And he's plays tennis at age 90 once or twice a week. So, and I meant to send out best wishes and happy birthday on Friday, and we're just so occupied here, everything that slipped my mind. I meant to do it yesterday, and it slipped my mind. So I grabbed my trusty iPhone 10, and I cranked up Siri to remind me today at 11:45, and I wrote a handwritten note here to myself today to get it done. Now, by the way, these comments are in no way a criticism of anything else or any other family. It's just me telling you what, and these are my thoughts, by the way. I've not discussed this with anybody else in the family. It's just my take that our family values have remained the same. My whole life, our family values have been defined, and everybody knows what they are without even speaking them. And my belief is that it has taken the ranking adult, patriarchal adult of the family to provide the rock nature, the glue, and to have the respect and influence of everybody else in the family. And don't misunderstand. I mean, we've got some renegades and malcontents out there in our family, like everybody else does. But I'm thinking overall, on balance, and it's, to me anyway, it's crucially important. Everybody needs an anchor. Every human being needs an anchor to decency and goodness. And I really feel sorry for those people that don't have that, who were never raised with it. And sadly, that's way too many people. We've been very fortunate. And all of the ranking adults in our family have remained devoted and dedicated to setting the examples necessary to keep the respect for those traditions that we have all accepted and lived as a family. And Steve is the latest to accept the role and triumph in it for everybody else in the family. So happy birthday, Steve. Late, but nevertheless, there it is. I don't know why the fact that CBS has fired Charlie Rose is such big news. I mean, what choice did they have? I know maybe some of you thought they'd try to delay and maybe bring him back like they're trying to do with Franken over in the Senate, but this was... No. There was no chance for Charlie here. Say, what are the odds that the 2020 Democratic presidential nominee is going to be a woman? Pretty solid, right? You know, it makes my theory that what Donna Brazil's doing is setting up a run by Michelle Obama. I mean, it's looking more and more likely. If Hillary Clinton can kiss it big, fat goodbye, if she's got designs on the 2020 nomination, there ain't no way, Jose. And they got to be a woman. In fact, I just saw a story. The GOP, the Republican National Committee, is raising money out the wazoo. I mean, compared to the Democrats, the Republicans in the latest reporting cycle raised $113 million. The Democrats remain in debt. What do you think? What do you think? Maybe the Democrat National Committee could make a specific special appeal to women to send in money to the. You think that would fly? No, I don't think so. But it is making my theorem that Donna Brazil's trying to push Hillary out of the way to clear the decks for Michelle Obama. It's got to be a woman now. It has to be a woman. And there's going to be other women besides Michelle Obama that want this. You know, you're going to have, who could it be? I mean, there's Pocahontas may throw her wigwam in the mix here, headdress, whatever. And if the Democrats have a primary that features at least one white woman and one black woman, no, it ain't going to be Kamala Harris. See, you have to discount the early front runners, proclaimed front runners by the media. Discount them. They're never going to be there at the end of the day. That's all That's all conventional wisdom. It never holds up. Kamala Harris is going to be there. That was a trial balloon, and it isn't working. I mean, she may have a pocket of support out there in the ultra left-wing pockets of the left coast, but nah. But okay, put her in there. I don't care. That's not my point. What are the Democrats going to do? Actually, Biden's going to go for it no matter what. Biden's going to be in there. There have to be some other guys in the Democrat Party going to want it, and there will be women. And one of them is going to be Michelle. And what if the other one is a white woman? Can you imagine the politically correct problem the Democrats are going to have? Everybody thinks they're just going to skate through because of supposedly sky-high Trump disapproval. I think this Democrat Party continues to be mired in more trouble than they're even aware of, and certainly much more than they will admit. This sexual harassment stuff, all of these people, all of these names, they are all liberal Democrats, and they're all very vocal about it. From the Hollywood guys to the money to the fundraising to the issues that they attach themselves to, such as climate change or gun control. We don't need the media to point out the hypocrisy. We can see it. And we're not through with names. We're not through with names being accused, people being accused of sexual harassment or abuse or what have you. As I say, outside of Conyers, we still don't have a name for anybody in Congress, and yet there have been secret payments of, $15 million with non-disclosure agreements, so those women can't legally speak about it. And the Democrats are relying on the same old thing. They're relying on the fact that by the time we get to either 2018 or 2020, that they're going to be able to convince enough people that Trump is a reprobate and a scumbag and whatever else. And they have failed to do that up to this point. And I don't know why they think that in this current atmosphere they're going to be facilitated in that effort. It is clear that their primary impetus, their primary agenda is going to be stop Trump, get rid of Trump, because it's becoming patently obvious that there's not much affirmative they can offer about themselves, except that they are not Trump. But I don't think, you go out into these blue state areas that elected Trump, I don't think you see a lot of Trump defectors. You don't see a lot of people that voted for Trump thinking, oh, my God, I made a mistake. I've got to go back. I'm voting Democrat next time. Selena Zito is still out there talking to these people, and they're not leaving Trump. They're not abandoning him. The Democrats are counting exclusively on that, and it isn't happening. Republicans are going to be in hot water, too, themselves, depending on what happens with the congressional agenda. Okay, phone number 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address is lrushbo@eibnet.com. By the way, eibnet.us, I'm sorry. The payments to victims of sexual harassment by members of Congress now up to $17 million. And those payouts have been made over the last 20 years. Now, why do they get to keep all of it private? Why do they get to benefit? That's going to blow sometime, too. It's going to blow up. But I mean, you put Roy Moore, you look at the attention that has been devoted to Roy Moore, while all of these other Democrat names pop up. And you find out Roy Moore is an outlier. Roy Moore is really not even in these guys' league. Roy Moore is in the minor leagues of this stuff now compared to what we are hearing about the top drawer abusers from the Democrat Party and the media. I was not going to play this, but I read the transcript and I've got the last line or two of it, so it's worth it. We put together a montage of Charlie Rose reporting on Moore, introducing segments about Moore. I was hoping to find segments where Charlie Rose is ripping Judge Moore, being critical, but we're still looking for those, and we'll find them. But that's not what this is. This is simply Charlie Rose between November 10th and 16th, either segueing between or introducing segments on CBS and PBS about the candidacy of Roy Moore. Now, keep in mind, while he says everything you're going to hear him say here, he knows full well that Roy Moore is a piker compared to what's been going on in his own homes and his own studio. Here it is.
Sexual misconduct allegations rock GOP Senate candidate Roy Moore. Alabama's Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore is under pressure to drop out over sexual misconduct claims. 4 women tell the Washington Post that Moore pursued them when they were teenagers and he was in his 30s. Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore denies the newest claim of sexual misconduct against him. But this morning, more Republicans are calling on the former judge to drop out of the race. Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore remains defiant after new allegations of unwelcome advances towards women and teenage girls. A woman tells the Washington Post that Moore called her out of a high school math class 40 years ago to ask her on a date. The wave of accusations of sexual harassment and assault that began weeks ago with Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein have now grown to include dozens of powerful men in all walks of life. Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore of Alabama may be the most recent example, but it is unlikely he will be the last.
It's exactly right. It was unlikely going to be the last because it wasn't long after that we got the news in 5,200 words in the Washington Post about none other than Charlie Rose. It's unlikely that he'll be the last. Did you hear the usual apologies? I mean, Charlie talked to the Washington Post. Well, I really want to essential these women understand that it's not who I am. I'm sorry. And I thought in a lot of these circumstances that it was mutual and that feelings were returned. I realize now that they weren't, but at the time, I really thought, what bogus. And the sanctimony, the guy's still preaching even in his apology. Just say, yeah, I did it. I'm sorry. You know what? I got caught. I like women. So nail me somewhere. I like women. I'm sorry. Put me in jail. I like women. I'm sorry. I know it's a crime in America today, so do with me what you will. I like women. I thought they liked me. Then I saw myself in the mirror and realized it couldn't be true. Something like that. Now we move on to CBS this morning. Well, you remember the story we had yesterday? The story from the London subway. They were doing a survey about people on the London subway, and some sociologists got hold of the data and turned it into something else. They were trying to determine what women on the London subway looked at or were moved by or were affected by because they wanted to affect advertising to them. And what they found was, and these are professional university sociologists, they found that women on the London subway tend to gravitate toward men who are wealthy, who are attractive, and who wear coats and ties. Now, this was news to so many. It was disappointing, shocking news. Now, the thing about that hasn't changed since the Garden of Eden. I mean, I know Adam didn't wear coat and tie, but the point is, what women find attractive is an evolutionary aspect of our creation. And human nature is what it is. And the feminists and the left can come around and they can try to erase it, reprogram it, change it all they want, which is what feminism has really been. And you get down to its bare essence, feminism has been an attack on basic human nature because certain women don't like it. So everybody expressed shock and outrage or disappointment that women tend to like good-looking guys who have a lot of money. Tell me when that has not been the case. Tell me when it has never been. Tell me when that was unusual. It's never been unusual. It's quintessential pure normalcy that women like good-looking guys who have money and power. That's universal. The feminists have come around. They've tried to change that. And so now these sociologists that reported on that were aghast. And they thought it was very bad news. after all the efforts to stop judging people by their appearance or their economic circumstances and to try to get to the real person, abject failure. What they didn't tell you, what they haven't talked about, is the exact opposite. Let's say they put some cameras on the London subway and study men. What do you think they're going to find? I guarantee, I can tell you right now what they're going to find. They're going to find that men are attracted to 36, 24, 36, good-looking, vibrant, whatever. It's just the way it is. Now, most guys are not going to score with what they see, so they'll settle. It's the name of the game. But what they find attractive, there's nothing the feminists can do about it. There's nothing the left can do about it. Now, that's the half of the story that doesn't run. The story that's run has been what women find attractive in men, and it let everybody down. It let everybody in the left down because of the last 30 years of focused effort to change what women find attractive about men. Wait till they do the other. Undeniable truth of life number 24 is undeniable. It becomes more of a profound, undeniable truth with the passage of each year. Imagine the shock and outrage if sociologists ever learn that men are attracted to attractive women. Oh, women they think are attractive. By the way, that changes from guy to guy. If you don't believe me, go to a bowling alley. Well, go anywhere. You can see evidence. What men think is good looking, some of it's universal, but it's not universal. The evidence is clear as a bell out there. But the point is, the dream, the perfect 10, even talking like that is considered now to be, sexist. That's right, sexist, judgmental. But it's just what is. It's basic, ordinary, everyday human nature that makes the world go around that the feminists have been doing their best to erase and change. And then you couple that with 77% of four-year college-educated Democrats think sex is not determined by your birth. Your gender is not determined by your birth. They're so screwed up. The left is so screwed up on this stuff, trying to alter basic human nature, trying to alter basic evolutionary human behavior. And they have just messed it up for everybody because now everybody's playing roles. Nobody knows what they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be, when to turn it on, when to turn it off. Everybody's now role-playing according to the tenets of quite punitive liberal political correctness. Anyway, that's why I say, Charlie, hey, look, I like women, all right? I went too far with them. I like women, though. I know in New York it's not cool, but I do. No, instead we get, I really thought they liked me, too. I thought it was mutual. Everything I've done has been to help women working for me advance their careers. What caca? But you say this stuff because the crisis PR people get hold of you and they write your statement for you. And it just makes it. Anyway, we go to the audio sound bites. Here's Norah O'Donnell on CBS This Morning, from which Charlie Rose has now been canned.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2017. Welcome to CBS This Morning. CBS News and PBS take Charlie Rose off the air after at least 8 women accuse him of sexual harassment. He apologizes, saying he thought he was pursuing shared feelings.
Charlie, what gave you the idea? You're 75 and wrinkled and crinkly and you're looking half asleep. What makes you think a 24, 25-year-old woman wants to watch you walk out of the shower nude? What in the world is it that made you think that you were pursuing shared feelings? Charlie, how many of those women, when they saw you walking wet, dripping wet, butt naked, coming out of the shower, ran into your arms? Versus how many who ran for the nearest door? Come on, Charlie, own up to it. Time now to get to the phones. We're going to start with Teresa in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm glad that you called. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Russ?
Fine and dandy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking my call. It's such an honor to talk to you. I've been listening to you since the late 80s, and first time I've been able to get through to talk to you, so thank you. I appreciate it. But what I wanted to say today is I feel like President Trump has emboldened these women to come forward and say, these accusations against sexual harassment, because he doesn't back down from the fake news stories or the lies that are told about him in the media. So I think that has emboldened them to come forward and say, hey, maybe now is the time somebody will believe me, because Trump has kind of paved the way for that.
Now, this is the first such opinion like this I have heard.
Really?
Yeah. You're actually, most people want to try to blame Trump for all of this happening. In fact, you know what the standard opinion is? The standard opinion is the only reason. Now, this is what the drive-bys are trying to sell, Teresa. They're trying to sell the fact that the women are coming forward in their disgust for Trump. The fact that Trump is exactly the same kind of reprobate that harassed them, the fact that he got elected has so angered them and has so frightened them and has so shocked them that they have been jolted into reality, and they are coming forward to stop all of this because it's unconscionable to them that anybody like this would ever be elected president.
Well, maybe that's true, but I guess I just don't see it that way. I just feel like, he just doesn't back down, and that's the one thing I love about him. It's like you can say anything about him, and people will come to me and go, hey, have you heard the latest about Trump? Did you hear what he did now? And every time I research it, nope, it's turned around. It's the media spinning it a different way, taking a little soundbite, making it sound like he's, an idiot or, whatever. And it always comes out that, no, Trump really didn't say that. He said this. And I feel like the media, it just doesn't know what to do with him. And I think people are just like, maybe now people will listen to me, because they didn't listen. I don't think they would have listened to me before, because they were he has pulled the curtain back. And not only in Washington, but I think in the media, and people are being emboldened by that.
Well, I think there's a lot of wishful thinking in your opinion here, and all of us are waiting for people on the left to wake up. We're all waiting for the left to come to reality and see our side of things. And so when we think it's happened, hey, this is pretty cool. But I'm going to ponder this. By the way, it's not that I agree with the standard theory that the drive-bys are trying to sell, which, again, just let me restate this. The drive-bys, and remember what they're doing. Even in the midst of all this, they are trying to protect their people, the Weinsteins, the Frankens, the Charlie Roses. Even though they are reporting it, they're still trying to protect them. And so what they're saying is, because everybody's asking, why now? I mean, Weinstein is going on for decades, and Charlie Rose and these other guys, and Mark Halperin and Thrush, why now? And so the media, seeking to answer that question, says the women are outraged by Trump, not by the guys that did what they did to them. They're outraged by Trump, that somebody like Trump could get elected. The women of America have had enough. The women of America are not going to tolerate this ever happening again. And so they're coming forward, and they're going public with all of the perversion that's happened to them, because they don't want these guys rising into more positions of power like Trump has. That's the ongoing theory. Their effort here is to blame all of this on Trump, because that is the sum total of the Democrat Party media agenda. Whatever is going wrong, it's Trump's fault. Now, Teresa's theory here is the exact opposite. She thinks the women are coming forward because Trump has emboldened them, because Trump does not shake and quiver and cower and run to the corner and hide. Trump does not become a victim and start going, oh, woe is me. He fights back, and he gives it back even better than he got. And Teresa's theory is that this is inspiring these women to come forward to tell the truth on guys that have mistreated them. Now, I don't think either theory is 100% correct, but something is driving it. Something is driving the women coming forward about Weinstein, and then that started the cascade. And again, all of this, 95 or more percent of this is contained on the Democrat Party side of the aisle. 95% of this is liberal male behavior. Liberal male predatory behavior against liberal women. And it was covered up, and it was ignored largely because of the need to protect Bill Clinton. I think if you want to find out why, if you want to get to the answer of why now, I think because they've politicized everything, you have to look at the political reason for this happening. And I don't believe it has a thing to do with protecting the women. I don't think it has anything to do with getting justice for the women, the abused women here in these stories. I don't think it has anything to do with anything but winning the presidency in 2020. And the biggest obstacle to that remains the Clintons. The Clintons are the de facto head of the crime family, and they've got to be taken out. The Clintons have to be taken out to clear the decks. And now that the Democrats find themselves going after Roy Moore, they've got to do something to continue that pursuit and to be able to go after other Republicans who might be caught up in this. Well, with Clinton, the big dog, getting away with it, and with Hillary, the big dogette, getting away with it, they've got to clear the decks. So I think everything is a political calculation. There is a reason why all of this is surfacing in the media now. Now, there is the cascade effect. I mean, once the dam breaks, then the women themselves will start going public. But it took that first story in the New York Times about Weinstein to get this stuff going. And now look at what's happened. And I think it's a combination of things. Why the women are coming forward. You may have a point. I don't know. I'm fascinated by the idea that Trump is making the women braver. I imagine a lot of leftists listening to the program here are in shock over hearing that theory, but we will ponder it and give it its just due. Up next is Scott in Folks Run, Virginia. Great to have you. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Mega Dittos, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted you to know I started listening to your show in 1991. I was depressed, and your show brought me out of depression, and I will always appreciate you for it.
Thank you, sir. Very, very much. I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. My 12-year-old son absolutely loves your Rush Limbaugh books, the Rush Revere books.
Wow.
And he just is a big fan. Unfortunately, he's at school today, so he wasn't able to say hi to you himself, but he'll be tickled that I was able to say hi to you for him.
Well, I'm really flattered. I sincerely mean it. Thank you very much, and him too.
Well, you're very welcome. My question really kind of goes to the equality of the matter, and the idea is, what if the shoe was on the other foot? What if it was a male invited up to the apartment, and it was the female that came walking out of the shower? Would the reaction be the same? Would the outrage be the same in society?
Well, let's explore this. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty on this. Do you have any names you want to use in your hypothetical story?
Well, let's just go with Charlie Rose. What if he was invited up and some girl that
name the girl. We got to name the female news person that's asked Charlie Rose up. So who are you thinking here? Barbara Walters?
Christiana Amanpour.
Who?
Christiana Amanpour.
Christiana Amanpour. Okay, so Christiana Amanpour. Let me take a break here because this is going to go a little bit longer than I have here. So, folks, as we go to the break, I want you to create a mental image here. I want you to think of Christiana Amanpour at home doing work, and she's got male assistants, and Charlie Rose is one of them. And we're going to rejoin the story with Christiane Amanpour walking out of the shower, nude, dripping wet, approaching Charlie Rose. And Scott here wants to know what would happen and how to be reported. We'll be back. Don't go away. Hey, we find ourselves back now with Scott in Folks Run, Virginia. You have to be real careful how you say that. I went to... Well, you do. As a highly trained broadcast specialist, I make it a point to pronounce every letter in that word so as to avoid any scrutiny. All right, so we've got Christiane Amanpour at home. She's hiring Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose works for her. He's up there doing work in her home. She comes out of the shower, naked, dripping wet, parading around while Charlie's doing work. And you're wondering what would happen and what the reaction would be if people found out about it. Is that right?
Well, yeah. What if he didn't want these advancements? Would he react the same way, say, 5, 10, 30 years down the road as we're seeing right now?
Well, I don't. Would he react today as the same as he would 5 or 10, 30 years ago? You mean? Right.
Well, no. The way that women are reacting to this situation, would men react the same way? Because I think most of my guy friends would be high-fiving each other even if nothing even happened.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase on this. What you're saying is that you had the good fortune to be invited to your female boss's home, and she got out of the shower and started working and walking around you totally nude. You wouldn't be offended. You wouldn't consider it abusive, and you'd be flattered.
Right. Or if I didn't want her attention, I would just excuse myself.
But then what? You mean you wouldn't make a big deal of it? You wouldn't call anybody? You wouldn't claim abuse? What are you trying to say, that men are not as offended as women are by the same treatment in reverse?
Well, yeah, I think so. And not to diminish the situation of, sexual harassment's a big deal, but just simply to say that going to the point of equality, men would not treat that situation the same way women treat that situation. And so...
Why not? I mean, sex abuse is sex abuse. You're saying that men would not regard this as abusive if a woman did it?
Well, not the guys I know. I mean,
do you think
there are some fellows out there that would screech and squeal and run out of there with their hands over their heads, but
yeah, but you'd have to look very hard for them, right? You think most would not do that? Do you think it's possible for women in power positions, women, female bosses, to abuse and bully, sexually or otherwise, male employees?
Yes.
Do you think it's possible for a male employee to be stalked and harassed in that way by a female employee?
Oh, certainly.
Okay, so in your scenario, where the woman in your scenario could fire the guy, you still think he might be high-fiving and go, wow, man, this is cool. My boss is out of the shower naked and walking toward me. Or do you think he'd feel pressured to act in a way that didn't defend her so that she wouldn't fire him?
Well, that is kind of a hard thing to walk through, isn't it? I think that if the job was at stake, that might be a different situation. But if it was an
well, that's exactly what this is. When you get look, I know that the stereotypical entertaining way to look at this is what you said. How many guys dream of a woman walking out of the shower nude wanting them? And so if it happens to you, you tell your buddies down at the Five and Dime and they all high-five you. But if you throw the circumstance of work into this and you're subservient and you can be fired if you do the wrong thing in that circumstance, then it takes all of the stereotypical. Look, we'll all admit here. Well, this is that we won't all admit, but let me tell you some universal truths, and that is that the number of men who would be offended as opposed to intrigued by a woman presenting herself nude. I mean, men and women are different, and a lot of men would find that flattering and exciting, and they would brag about it and so forth. There's no question about that, but you throw employment into it. You throw being paid into this situation. It changes it. It takes the stereotypical male role play, female role play totally out of this. It takes the romance out of this. This has got to be shocking. I don't doubt that it is infuriating, that it is unnerving, that it just ticks these women off and scares them. I don't have any doubt that they feel violated or stalked or any of this and offended. The very thought that this old codger thinks that he would be the dream in their eyes. All of that would just have to unnerve them. I totally get it. Being stalked by people like this and having your job held up, depending on how you react to this, I think this is perverted reprobate behavior. And it's about time some of this is coming to the surface. Newsweek magazine, headline, how can we make progress on gender roles when women still prefer rich, muscular guys? Did I not tell you? They're ticked off by human nature. Details and other exciting stuff coming right up. Greetings and welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. It's Thanksgiving week. And it kicks off in my mind, the Christmas season, which I happen to love. And so we do it. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. Here's the thing. Let's review. After the election, what happened? I mean, immediately after the election. I mean, the next day. Do you remember? What do you remember? Exactly right. The streets of New York, the streets of Philadelphia, the streets of cities in California were flooded with women wearing hats on their heads that looked like vaginas. They had a name, these hats. And these women, they knitted, they marched, they screamed, they were crying, they were making fools of themselves in protest of Trump and in fear that Trump would take away their rights. Donald Trump somehow was going to come along and take away everything about their femininity or their masculinity, depending on how they viewed themselves. Well, whatever it was, Trump was going to take it away from them. They were scared, they said. I think the whole thing was bogus. I think it was a George Soros bought and paid for operation. But I don't doubt that some of the women in these protests were genuinely scared to death. That's what liberalism does to people. It scares them. If people have bought it, if they've absorbed it, if they've been exposed to it for decades, since childhood, they were scared to death by something other than another liberal being in power. His election was an affront to their delicate snowflake sensibilities. In the meantime, the real people who were and had been limiting and taking away women's rights were not Donald Trump. They were leftist men. Leftist men in power, in leftist businesses, were grabbing, were threatening, were harassing, were bullying, were stroking, were tricking, threatening, harassing, firing, limiting job advancement, limiting money to women of all ages. What I want to know is this. Will the women who made fools of themselves wearing vagina hats in masses in droves after the election. Will you now organize and rise up again to protest the real threats to you and your rights and your careers and your jobs? The creeps in Hollywood, the creeps and the preverts in media and in government for doing much more than just talking about grabbing something. You might think Trump did all this, but all you've got is Trump talking about it and bragging about it to another guy. That's it. But in the meantime, the guys you claim to respect and love and adore, the real men of the left, in real leftist businesses, were the ones grabbing, not talking, threatening, not talking, harassing, not talking, bullying, tricking, exposing themselves, firing you, and limiting your advancement in jobs and money. You're going to stand up and protest the real threats, ladies, you leftist babes? If a guy just talking about female anatomy can get you so hysterical, what must all these new revelations do to leftist women? I'm serious. These leftist women who were living in literal quaking fear over Donald Trump, what must they be thinking now? With Weinstein, with Franken, with Charlie Rose. These are heroes, don't forget. With, let's see, this goes on, Mark Halperin, Glenn Thrush. And the list is 23 or 25 of them now. With Weinstein, the number's fast approaching 100. And you ladies realize that Judge Moore is not even in the same league. Judge Moore's riding the pine in the minor leagues compared to your guys. Well, I'm seriously, what are these leftist women thinking? And you know what I'll bet? I'll bet they're not threatened at all. You think they are? I'd love to be wrong. You think they're mad? Hope you're right. Hope they are. You think they're disillusioned? Do you think they feel betrayed? Do you think they're questioning their own judgment? Do you think they're questioning liberalism? Do you think they're questioning what they've had inculcated into their souls for all these years? Do they think they're feeling betrayed? Yes or no? Huh? So it's just personal. This does not say anything about liberalism to these women. Oh, so they think all men are this way. Trump and these guys, there's no difference. All men are predators, and all men are purse snatchers, and all men are muggers. Yeah, you may have a point about that. In these particular women's eyes. We're talking about, yeah, you might have a point. But I'll never forget the hysteria. Newsweek magazine, did I not call this, "How Can We Progress on Gender Roles When Women Still Prefer Rich, Muscular Dudes?" This is a reaction to the London subway survey of women and the men they were ogling while nobody knew they were watching. Nobody knew they were being observed. You remember when Time magazine did that cover, when they learned that men and women are born different? 1996 or 1997, Time magazine actually had a cover story, "Men and Women Are Born Different," as it was news to them. Now, I love to point this out. Imagine you're the editor at Time magazine and you come across news that boys and girls are different at birth. That is such shocking news to you that it deserves cover story status. Who in the world thinks that that's news? Well, if you have been steeped in liberalism from the time you're born till the time you get out of J school to the time you start working in journalism, we had couples raising their little girls with G.I. Joes and deep blue painted bedrooms, and their little boys were in pink bedrooms and playing with Barbie. And they were shocked to learn that their little girls were trying to find new wardrobes for G.I. Joe rather than pulling the trigger. These leftists are just stunningly obtuse to me. How can we make progress on gender roles? Why do you people on the left want to so deny human nature? I have the answer. I think it's amazing. I know exactly why. Undeniable truth of life number 24. Feminism was created so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream. Bingo. That thought earned me lifetime status as a great thinker. And to this day, women, leftists, feminists, and feminazis are still outraged by undeniable truth of life number 24. But again, this is just half the story. I just have to remind you, this story is women ogling men on the subway, and these leftists are all upset that these women are eyeing rich, attractive, muscular guys who wear suits, by the way. Can you imagine a reaction when if they find out what women, or men, rather, are looking at on the subway? Imagine the shock and the anger that's going to accompany that realization. Okay, audio soundbite time. Grab soundbites number 21 and 22. What we have here, CBS News 60 Minutes. September 10th of this year, Charlie Rose interviewing former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon during a discussion about the impact of the Access Hollywood tape on then-Republican nominee Trump's campaign. Here is soundbite number 1.
Okay, let me bring you to Billy Bush. Take us inside the dilemma that he faced.
Look, this was locker room talk. This was two guys on a bus or a dressing room years and years and years ago. This is not the guy that people know. People know Donald Trump. So we dismissed it out of hand of any of this over the top. And we thought the reaction would be so over the top from the mainstream media and from the left.
American people don't care about how you talk about women that way.
They don't care about locker room talk.
But they do care about values, and they do care about respect for women. They
do.
You know that.
And
it's not just locker room talk.
That's locker room talk. The Billy Bush thing is locker room talk.
So here's Rose. He's getting on Bannon's case about Trump and the Access Hollywood video. He's trying to make a big deal out of what Trump said. And all the while, Charlie Rose knows what he's been doing. And here he is trying to castigate Bannon by association and getting Bannon to castigate Trump. But that wasn't it. There was a little bit more.
Are you trying to destroy someone when you simply describe what they have said?
They're not describing what he said. If you look at what
it was much more. If you run the tape, which is a news item, that's not trying to destroy somebody. That's simply trying to report.
Charlie, give me a break. The famous debate where we brought the women, the Clinton accusers.
That was your deal.
100%.
You wanted to do that for a while.
100%.
Why?
Because I thought if you're going to go after Donald Trump for his words, let's have the Clintons defend Clinton's actions.
You remember that Clinton invited the abused women of Bill Clinton to have a front row seat at one of the debates. But here's Charlie Rose badgering Steve Bannon over the Trump Access Hollywood video. And especially over what Trump said. You can't just say it's nothing because he only did was said it. All he did was say it. You can't let him get away with that. And Bannon, this is locker room talk, Charlie. It's all it was. If Bannon had known then what he knows today, can you imagine how that interview might have gone? Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody knew it. Again, with Charlie Rose, everybody knew it, including the exec producer of his program, which was a woman, and that's to whom the women employees complained. And she said, that's just Charlie. You just got to accept that's just Charlie. It's just Charlie. It's harmless. It's Charlie. And now she's, of course, saying, I wish I'd have done so much more. I wish I would have taken it much more seriously. I didn't realize. I wish her job depended on staying in Rose's good graces as well. Back to the CBS show this morning. More Norah O'Donnell and Gayle King as they deal with the reality that the guy sharing a chair on their set is a sexual abuser and pervert.
This is a moment that demands a frank and honest assessment about where we stand and, more generally, the safety of women. Let me be very clear. There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It is systematic and pervasive. And I've been doing a lot of listening, and I'm going to continue to do that. This I know is true. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning. and a taking of responsibility. This will be investigated. This has to end. This behavior is wrong, period.
So they're throwing Charlie Rose overboard on the CBS This Morning show today, with Norah O'Donnell making it clear that this is unacceptable, will not be tolerated. She's sending the message, there's no way this guy's coming back here. I don't care what happens. I don't care where he goes to rehab. I don't care how many apologies. I don't care how many admissions. He's not coming back here. She is making it abundantly clear that she didn't know. Right? Up next is Gayle King. This is the BFF of the Oprah. And she was especially pained at the revelations.
I got an hour and 42 minutes of sleep last night. Both my son and my daughter called me. Oprah called me and said, "Are you okay?" I am not okay. After reading that article in the Post, it was deeply disturbing, troubling, and painful for me to read. That said, I think we have to make this matter to women, the women that have spoken up, the women who have not spoken up because they're afraid. I'm hoping that now they will take the step to speak out too, that this becomes a moment of truth. To be very honest with you, I'm still trying to process all of this. I'm still trying to sort it out because this is not the man I know, but I'm also clearly on the side of the women who have been very hurt and very damaged by this.
You know, if they didn't know, this had to be shocking. I mean, this, and I think they're telling the truth too. I don't think they knew. I think they were blindsided by this. And I'll tell you, folks, I totally understand both of these women, Norah O'Donnell and Gayle King. I can understand Gayle King being so upset she only got an hour and a half sleep. I can totally understand it. You have to realize that all of these people are in the same club, and there are rivalries and jealousies, but it's them against us, and they're unified in that regard. And they hold each other in the highest of esteem ideologically, being on that same team, the left wing, the liberalism same team. And to have this surface, there is no question this totally shocked them and undid them. This is not the kind of thing that they think goes on in their immediate circle. And I think it was very brave of these women to tackle this today as openly and as upfront and as courageously as they did. They had all kinds of choices. They could have ignored it. Yes, they could have. Doesn't matter. Get somebody else to sit in the chair. They could have ignored it. The suits at CBS could have said, "We're not making this any worse. We're just not going to. We're going to acknowledge Charlie Rose being." That would have been the old-fashioned way of dealing with this. He's not here. You don't address it. Every day we look forward. We don't talk about what happened last night. Our own people. There are any number of ways to have ignored this, but they tackled it head on. And not only that, they made it abundantly clear he's not coming back. He is not welcome back. Anyway, I take a break here. My friends, we're up against it once again on the programming clock, the format clock, but we will be right back. Don't go away. By the way, one thing that's not been mentioned in the Washington Post story, I haven't read them all, but Charlie Rose had a live-in girlfriend. Her name was Amanda Burden, and she is the granddaughter of William Paley, the founder of CBS. And she has Standard Oil money in her family. She has railroad money in her family. She is a very wealthy doyen. I've met her. I've met she and Charlie at social soirees back when I didn't know what I was doing by showing up to them. And she's always been his girlfriend. She's always been there. Never married. She's 73. Now Charlie is 75. And you have to wonder, I mean, all this stuff's going on. Does she know about it or not know about it? Now the Washington Post story is out there. If she knew about it, I guarantee you in her circle, this is doubly embarrassing. Amanda, did you know? This is not a pretty picture out there. This establishment stuff, folks, I'll tell you, they're so protected, so insulated. that they're seldom held to account on anything, and then something like this happens. It's about rocking your world. Talent on loan from God. In all four corners of the world, I, El Rushbo, am a household name. And we head back to the phones now. This is J.R., Columbus, Ohio. Great that you waited. I appreciate your patience. Hi.
Mega Thanksgiving dittos, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Okay, so do you think it's strange that Barack and Michelle Obama have been very quiet since the Harvey Weinstein thing blew up?
No, because I would not expect them to join the chorus of condemnation. They might utter a statement or something, a sentence, but then they're not going to dwell on this. No. Does it surprise you? What will you expect them to say?
Yeah, it surprises. Well, maybe it doesn't surprise me. These are the people they hang out with. Isn't that correct?
Oh, exactly. They hang around with them. They take their money. They join them at other fundraisers. They pat each other's back on joint charities. Absolutely. They were inseparable political buddies. Right.
Got it. Yep. Well, with friends like that, who needs enemies, right?
Well, that's, that's the thing about this. These are questions I don't know. But let me just share. When I see when I see Harvey palling around with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and knowing the Clintons as I do, I wonder if what evolves there is a genuine friendship or a politically expedient photo op kind of relationship. Now, no question the Clintons thrive on the money that Weinstein brings. But is it the money that opens the Clintons' doors for the Weinsteins, or is it that the Clintons really like the guy and would be in their circle of friends if there wasn't any money? And that's where I think, no. I think in too many worlds of politics, money is the fundamental ingredient in relationships. I guess one of the many things wrong with it. And this has been an eye-opening thing for me, too. I have been so naive about many things, like most of us are for most of my life. I mean, for example, when I'm younger and I'm reading any publication, a newspaper, magazine, and I see a profile of a person, not necessarily a Hollywood star, just a person, somebody noteworthy for doing something. In the old days, I used to think that profile was there because whoever was being profiled had genuinely earned it by being singularly unique or having a distinct achievement that warranted such attention in the media. Later on, much later on, I learned that that's got nothing to do with who gets profiled. It has to do with PR agents pitching these stories to reporters and editors. And it comes about, in most cases, largely for reasons unrelated to the substance. And it is in these circumstances that you learn how media relationships are created. And it's not based on the same things that you would think friendships are based on, that are genuine and real. I mean, you really like somebody, not that they're going to raise a bunch of money for you or give you a bunch of money. You really like somebody not because they're going to arrange a big magazine story on you, but you genuinely like them. And I think in the world of politics, money is the element that puts people together. Now, I've always known that to be the case, but now I ask myself, if it weren't for the fact that Weinstein's out raising a bunch of money and giving it to the Clintons, would they spend any time with him at all? I don't know the answer to that, but if the answer is no, then what does it say about the relationship to begin with? That it's kind of fragile and it's based on things that have nothing to do with genuine, real friendships and relationships. I mean, how do the Obamas know Weinstein? I mean, the Clintons were first with Weinstein going way back to the 90s. Here comes Obama. Obama knows Weinstein because they're both Democrats. Weinstein likes to hang around with powerful people, so much so that he will raise and spend money to do it. And let me give you a little hint. That's how you have to do it. If you want to hang around with a president, raise a lot of money. If you want to be invited to presidential forums and raise a lot of money for them or donate, I guarantee you'll be invited. Whether the president knows you or not. And then you'll be able to go through the motions of being a friend with the president, be able to talk to your friend. Yeah, the president and I were talking the other day. What made it possible was you giving the money, not the fact the president knows who you are, really likes you. That could end up happening. So as far as the Obamas are concerned, I think it's quite natural they'd look at this thing and think Harvey's probably worth throwing overboard here. Harvey doesn't mean enough to them to try to save him. That's up to Harvey. If Harvey can save himself, if Harvey can rehab himself, if Harvey can get back to where he was and start resuming funneling money, then the Obamas will welcome him back. It's another reason why I could never do politics. I couldn't ask for donations, and then I wouldn't want to be obligated after I got any. I just couldn't do it. Different world. But money is what creates many political relationships. Donating it, arranging for it, bundling it. And once you're out of that business, your contact with the politician in question diminishes. Their time is very limited, and most politicians, from presidents to senators to members of the House, you wouldn't believe how much of their spare time is spent raising money for the next election. In the Senate, that's practically all they do. And if you don't have a connection to them with money, the odds are you're not going to be in the inner circle or anywhere near them. Do you hear what Sarah Huckabee Sanders pulled off yesterday? What am I thankful for? Yeah, this is great. This is absolutely great. Sarah Huckabee Sanders at the White House press briefing made every reporter stop and explain what they were thankful for. And there's a website out there called Splinter News, a bunch of leftists that were just outraged over this. They were spitting mad over it. The headline, White House reporters embarrassed themselves telling Sarah Huckabee Sanders what they're thankful for. During today's White House press briefing, Sarah Huckabee Sanders told reporters that if they wanted to ask a question, they had to first say something they were thankful for. And the press corps went along with it. And the people here at Splinter are livid. Sanders immediately called upon April Ryan, who as a black woman has been a continual target of White House press secretaries. She's not been a target. Hey, Splinter, April Ryan is not a target. They kiss her butt. Every press secretary since she's been in the press room kisses her rear end. You know, she's the new Helen Thomas. In a way, they don't want to make her mad. What do you mean? Target. To her credit, Ryan quickly responded with an appropriate level of snark, stating, I'm thankful to be able to talk to you and question you every single day. For the rest of the briefing, other reporters then prefaced their questions with things they were grateful for, their families, the First Amendment, their colleagues, their wives. And even, I'm thankful for this exercise, one reporter said. When Zeke Miller of the Associated Press did not give a thanks, Sanders stopped him. You broke the rule. You haven't offered anything you're thankful for. Sanders wrapped up the briefing by saying thank you for participating in this very fun exercise. Now, the people at Splinter News say this was an intensely embarrassing exercise. No one should have played along with Sanders' request. This is not a school. Reporters are not children, and they don't have to acquiesce to displays of gratitude just because the White House press secretary asked them to. The knee-jerk obedience was especially humiliating given the way the press has been treated by the Trump administration. Something as harmless and as innocent as this. The press are not children is news to me, too. That's exactly what they are. You know, you remember old buddy Tony Snow, Mr. Snerdley? Tony Snow was once a guest host of this program. He became, he was the Brett Baer of Fox News for a while. And then he became White House press secretary for George W. Bush. And I'll never forget one press briefing. They were just all over him about immigration. You know, Tony Snow did not believe in amnesty, but he had to speak up for it because it was the Bush administration policy. So he became the dutiful soldier, trying to extol the virtues of amnesty and illegal immigration. Well, not illegal, but illegal immigrants being normalized. And some of the conservative press corps just hammered him. I mean, they just went after him tooth and nail on hypocrisy and phoniness. And he stopped them one day and said, you know, have you people ever stopped to realize where we are every day? You ever stop to realize how special the opportunity we all have is? In other words, Tony Snow was in awe of being the White House press secretary, of working for a president, of having the job of press secretary. And it was something that always remained special to him. It never became humdrum or routine or taken for granted. And I think that's what Sarah Huckabee Sanders was doing. Name something you're thankful for. Hey, can we act like human beings today instead of programmed robots? And it doesn't surprise me at all that some splinter press bunch would be all upset that the reporters didn't tell her to go take a hike. Melissa Gilbert is the second woman to accuse Oliver Stone of sexual harassment. That's a name I was trying to remember early on. And the Florida Democratic Party chairman has resigned over allegations of sexual harassment. Stephen Biddle, I don't know how he pronounces it, tendered his resignation Friday after a report alleging that he sexually harassed women and created a hostile work environment. A brief timeout. We'll be back and continue in a jiffy. Well, you're going to be over the river and through the woods on the way to Grandma or Grandpa's house tomorrow. And we're going to be right here. And we will we'll do Open Line Friday on Wednesday tomorrow since we have Thursday and Friday off. Most everybody else does Thanksgiving holiday. So look forward to being with you tomorrow, folks. We always do, and tomorrow's no different. Thank you for being with us today, too. Cheerio.